Hello and welcome to Entpgathering. This is a channeled reading or intuitive exercise I call a timeless synchronicity reading for the MBTI INTP. Today I'll be using 3 cards from the Synchronicity Oracle deck. I will then use the major arcana from a deck called the Enigma Tarot. It's based on and comprised of images, sketches by Leonardo da Vinci, who was an ENTP. And I will pull major energies because the major arcana in the tarot, if you don't know, if you're new to tarot, is the hero's journey. So think Joseph Campbell, think Odysseus, think all of the mythological stories of old that required an individual to leave the safety and comfort of their own home environment and head off into the world to find themselves. That is the hero's journey, and it's comprised of 22 cards in the major arcana of the tarot. The other cards, there are 16 court cards and then 44 minor arcana. Court cards are comprised of a king, a queen, a knight, and a page. They represent the masculine and feminine energies and the actions that we take and the communications that we make through our masculine and feminine self. It's really important to know in these readings and on this channel that a lot of the information that I will be sharing with you has to do with my own individuation process. Individuation is a term that Carl Jung coined, describing the inward journey, the subconscious exploration of the self. He's also the one who coined the term synchronicity, which, if you don't know synchronicity or how it works, it can be best described, but it would be an error to say so, that synchronicity is akin to coincidences. So if there's a coincidence in the information that comes out in this reading with us, as you clicked on that thumbnail and are now sharing your energy into this collective general reading, timeless synchronicity reading, you can come back to it in the future to review it. But in this viewing, your initial one, the object is to think of this time together as an intuitive exercise where you will be aware or keep your feels out, your senses out for the synchronicities that occur. It could be something that I said. It could be a reference to an astrological sign or energy. I can talk about real life 3D happenings that you may be going through. For example, if I describe a problem at work or a problem with a spouse or a loved one, a friend, you can simply take that timeline, that narrative, and choose what resonates from that timeline, from that narrative that does apply to you, and leave the rest. Never try to force anything, especially if it's not resonating with you. And by resonating, it could a resonation could come in the form of a trigger. You could be anxious, hearing something that would be a clue that there is a message in this reading for you, or that your own personal life story as it is now, the energy that you are embodying, is reflected in this reading, this collective general reading. Carl Jung was all about the collective conscience of society. But in order to get to that collective conscience, he had to first go into his own subconscious and then into his shadow function to retrieve the childhood self that was not allowed to grow naturally. Many of us as intuitive dominants, and I identify, my reported type is INTP, but my best fit type is ENTP. I consider myself an NT, and now have developed through this process, through working with tarot, through knowing my own astrology, through knowing the cognitive functions backwards and forwards, individually and then combined to comprise the types. As an ENTP with extroverted intuition as my dominant function, I've been able to see connections between all these seemingly disparate typology systems, only to find that Carl Jung did the same exact thing. Well, he was the one who came up with the idea of cognitive functions, first off, published a book that was read by an American, Catherine Cook Briggs, in 1923. And then from there, she and her daughter, recognizing that this book of psychological types describing the cognitive functions was on point. There, she had a very visceral reaction to it, confirming that yes, what he had written down is actually true. So what did she do? She started gathering people in her community and basically interviewed them, had conversations with them. She and her daughter then took those conversations and the questions asked during the conversations and came up with a complete list of questions that are psychological opposites. They're not logical opposites, and therefore it leads the person who's taking the assessment through a series of questions that really aim at the root of your answer, deep within the subconscious, to pull out that maybe the answer that your inner child that's in your shadow would and is likely to answer. It brings out the shadow aspects that we had to stuff down as intuitive dominance when we were younger, and especially as an INTP. I know many of you have had really troubling or difficult early years, certainly as an ENTP, but my reported type being INTP. As an ENTP, I think I've made that switch to ENTP because I had to learn how to flex my dominant function, or I believe that I was established by the age of 14 as an INTP, but probably around the ages of 8 or 9, I've started to recognize that I needed to learn to flex my judgment and also my perceptions of the world because of the nature of my early childhood. So I mentioned the decks, yes? Oh yes, I left off with the ENTP and Da Vinci. So I will use the major arcana, which is the hero's journey, 22 cards, to find out what's going on in each of your chakras. And then I'm going to use the minor arcana of the tarot from the same deck, along with the court cards, to find out what is currently going on in your energy. Whereas the first 7 cards from the major arcana are going to tell us generally what's going on in your own hero's journey. And then we'll use the court cards, which talk about action and feminine and masculine energies in each of the elements. It also talks about other people who are in your energetic space, coupled with the 44 minor arcana cards, which really break down each element of air, fire, water, and earth. And I'm going to relate these to your astrology or to astrology. You'll have to determine, your own astrology by simply going online. Go to astro.com, astroseek.com, and enter in your information, and you'll get a full list of what planet was in what house, at what degree, and that's the information that you'll need to slowly build an understanding of the correlation, of the connection between tarot, astrology, numerology, or I like to call sacred numerology, and the cognitive functions. Because the cognitive functions of intuition is fire energy, it's spirit energy, it's passion, it's the seer's energy, very psychic, very spiritual, very passionate. Then you have swords, which represent air. So it also represents communication, words, intellect. So that would be the T function. Extroverted or introverted. I'll go into the difference between the two and how that comes out in the cards. So we've got fire and wands and intuition being one the same. Then we have air, swords, and the judging function of thinking, extroverted or introverted. And then you have the feeling, the judgment of feeling as cups. And cups or water as an element in the tarot, in astrology, is very much about the emotions. And last but not least, or in the case of cognitive functions, that F function, either FI or FE, is about how one relates, how one connects, how one is emotionally bonded with another individual. If it's FE, then it's bonding with the tribe. And if it's FI, it's understanding, what do I like? What makes me feel emotionally secure or good or what have you? And last but not least, you have sensing, which would fall into the category of earth energy. SE or SI is about the body, and it's about the 3D experience. All right, without further ado, I wanted to pull out, I've made a deck of my own, and we'll pull some cards in this. But I wanted to share with you, before we begin, the total list of your cognitive functions and how they relate to other MBTIs, other types. So as an INTP, your shadow functions are that of the ENTJ. I don't want to misspeak. Hello. Okay, here we go. So an INTP, your cognitive function stack of TI, NE, SI, and FE is your egoic preferences for using the cognitive functions. Now your shadow functions, or that of the ENTJ, would be TE and I. So it would be the reverse polarity of the same functions that you have in your egoic nature, but reversed. So TENI, SEFI. So those are your shadow functions. And if you stop to think about it, I guess I don't need this card anymore. If you stop to think about it, how many ENTJ friends do you have or admire in your life? I bet there's quite a few. Have you asked your friends? Have you typed your friends, your family members? Any mentors, any leaders you've had in your past? Because that was certainly the case when I typed myself as an ENTP, as a best fit type, and my reported type being INTP. I was actually living with an ENTJ at the time. And I was just naturally drawn to INTJs. I didn't know many in my life at the time, but yeah, there's something about FI users for me, because I use FE, as do you. FI users, just really, it's like I'm a moth to a flame. FI is, anything introverted is going to be feminine, and anything extroverted is going to be masculine. FI being feeling and it being introverted, the feeling, cognitive function, judging function, is used by men and women, but there's a balance there. I think asserting one's own values on the 3D world and stepping up and saying, this is what I like, I don't have to give you any reasons for it. It's, I like red, that's my favorite color. I don't need to reason it out for you. It's just my preference. That can be, I pick that energy up as one that is, for lack of a better word, a bit narcissistic, egoic in nature, and therefore I give it this masculine energy to it. Although all the cognitive functions, as reflected by all people in the world, have a masculine and feminine energy about them, in them. That the hero's journey is teaching one to marry, to balance out the lessons and the tests that we've endured growing up. And if we're on the hero's journey path, we are facing true north. We want to head in the direction of our destiny, all the while knowing that the universe has created free will. But also, it has created synchronicity to help us, guide us along our path of the hero's journey. The problem with a higher power connecting with, well, an ENTP or an INTP, I was skeptical, most definitely, and was a very out atheist for the past 15 years. It wasn't until I started detailed research and study of the cognitive functions for my own benefit did it open up my mind to the possibility and to the synchronicities in my life that led me to where I am now. I have a website, I have a company that is devoted to teaching people about cognitive functions, teaching people about synchronicity, and how to travel through the hero's journey consciously, safely being triggered in the way that it's going to draw your attention to that area of your life that triggered you, that needs attention, or needs an adjustment or an improvement, or sometimes needs to be cleared out so that you can create space for new energy to come in, whether that comes in the form of feelings, emotions, thoughts, tangible things like money and manifesting, or it could be that fire within us all that is yes, passionate and keeps us rooted in the earth, in our bodies, in our passions and sexuality, sacred sexuality, but it's also very spiritual if elevated. House 9, Sagittarius. Number 9 on the so-called Enneagram. This is what we're talking about. A world that is filled with magic and synchronicity. If only we can open our eyes, our hearts, our minds to the very real fact that magic is all around us. So without further ado, I'm already 20 minutes in. Let's get this going. That was quite the introduction, but I wanted to give you a heads up of exactly what is going, or generally what's going to happen here. I'm going to pull 3 cards. This is the Synchronicity Oracle deck. And these cards are comprised of images. And I'm going to draw 3 to look at the first 3 energy centers of the root, sacral, and solar plexus. The root energy center, or the I'll call it the root. It's also the base chakra. Is all about safety and security. So think Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Whatever card comes out, I'll draw a second one, and then we'll look for, we'll look for the connecting image between those 2 cards, and that will tell us what's going on in those chakras, what's going on in your life. And if anything resonates that comes out of that, take that, right? And maybe even jot it down on a list, or you can feel yourself out here throughout the reading. And again, use this time as, whatever cards come out, use it as an intuitive exercise. Use your intuition, of extroverted intuition in your auxiliary position to support your TI, which is zeroing in on these cards and the messages that I'm giving you through them, the interpretation. You can interpret them as well. But I will be giving out a lot of the information that connects these cards to tarot, astrology, and the cognitive functions, and the chakras. All right, here we go. We've got a DNA strand, we've got the infinity symbol, a candle, an alien head, a green bicycle, a bitten apple, and an image of waves, along with this. My goodness, what is that called? That's so bizarre that okay, and it's the waves that connects us from the root to the sacral chakra. Root chakra is about safety and security. And as this is one of the larger ones here, I would say, and it's water, I would say that, wow, what's going on right now in the world is quite emotional and can be turbulent. You can see here that this image carries over, and it's the only one that carries over to the sacral. Sacral chakra, or energy center, is water energy. It is where the divine feminine rests and lives and creates and is passionate. It's also sacred sexuality, and it is linked to the crown chakra, and it's how we pull in downloads, ideas, inspiration from the collective consciousness or beyond to our higher selves and to spirit, if you believe in that. I didn't until I couldn't ignore the synchronicities in my life, until I couldn't ignore the clairaudience and claircognizant abilities. I believe everybody is psychic, and especially if you're an intuitive dominant, you definitely have an edge on the rest of the population. As intuitive dominants comprise what, 20-25% of the world's population? I think for a reason. I think because people like me and you are here to help sensors, to help those who don't have intuition as a preceding function in the dominant or auxiliary of your cognitive stack. Simply put, we are the new doctors, we are the new psychologists, we are the new entertainers and artists and writers and dreamers, healers. We're the new doulas, we are the new politicians and musical artists, here to elevate the collective. Once we understand our cognitive functions, and once we understand how all these seemingly disparate typology systems are connected, are actually showing the same information, but from a different viewpoint, you'll see how truly connected you are and have been all of your life to the universe. All right, 3 cards out, and we've got the image of the waves, which I said are emotions. It's gotten bigger in the sacral, coming from the root. So this water is bringing in with it. It looks like a confrontation. There's maybe some battle going on within where you're feeling like you are on rough waters. And the connecting image to the solar plexus is the bitten apple. Also on this card, you have the tree of life, or the Kabbalah, Eye of Ra or Horus, Leo the lion, we've got Sagittarius energy, and we've got the Buddha. And we have a cobweb, a spider's web. And what's that? Oh, and a crystal ball. But the connecting image is that bitten apple. Adam and Eve, wisdom, health. I think whatever water energy that you are processing in your root and into your sacral is bringing you some insight and wisdom. You might hopefully think this reading itself, or this introduction into tarot through cognitive functions theory, is about wisdom. So this is TI information. And it's also FI or FE, rational thought and observance of your emotions right now. So if this resonates, if anything I said sparked anything in you, then there's probably a message. Remember, don't try to force anything. On the bottom of the deck, now I always look at the bottom of the deck as kind of like an overview of the cards that came from that deck. Wow, interesting. Tree of life is the connecting image. This here, which is, we see this on the Ten of Pentacles in the Minor Arcana. And also, surprise, the 9 numbers of the Enneagram, the so-called Enneagram, are actually the 9 houses of the zodiac, or the first 9 signs. Aries would be the ruler of the first house of the zodiac. Aries is the leader. It's the baby boss of the zodiac because it's the first sign. Where Pisces, the 12th sign, is well, it's a collective house that has to do with dreams and mysticism. But going back to Aries, first house, Aries, or Number 1 on the so-called Enneagram is called the reformer. What are they about? They're about structure and discipline and leading groups of people towards enlightenment and offers up that safety and security and that structure in which to prosper. Second house would be Taurus. This is about resources. This is about unconditional love. Taurus is ruled by Venus. It's a feminine earth fixed sign. So the number 2 on the so-called Enneagram is in the so-called heart space, Venus, Venusian energy of the second house, Taurus. It's also about money and resources and abundance as it's truly meant to be defined, which is not just money, but what gets you through life without the money, that is not money. So love, friendship, companionship, intellectual curiosity, creative endeavors. That's all second house. Or the number 2 on the so-called Enneagram, their issue is about worth. So they'll overcompensate by giving and giving and not expecting anything in return, but really expecting something in return, because 2s give so much to get back because they lack a feeling of self-worth, which is abundance. Third house is Gemini. This is about the 2 hemispheres of the brain. This is thought. This is air. This is TI and TE. And in the major arcana, Gemini is shown as the magician. And on the magician's table, there's a table with all the 4 elements with which they manifest things. But because it's a mind, Gemini is a air house ruled by Mercury, which also rules Virgo. Because it's air, it's very keen and adept at being able to visualize, looking back at the resources available to you, looking back at your first and your second house, that combination of spirit and body, and identify resources within you that you can then use to manifest things in your 3D world. And so it goes. And the Enneagram 3 is called the achiever. And what do? They go out and kind of embody the best parts of what it means to be a sentient being in the world. So the Magician card number 1 in the major arcana. It's also card number 6, the Lover's card, which for me is all about marrying the masculine and the feminine to complete a whole within oneself, because we are all feminine and masculine. And it's those of us who don't realize that, don't recognize that fact, that usually end up with too much of one or the other. And that creates an imbalance. Just think of, so the 3 on the so-called Enneagram is is associated with achiever and achievement. It's also associated with performing artists, people, celebrity status, which is not a coincidence because the Three of Cups in the minor arcana of the tarot is the card of celebration. So the achiever being caught between this overgiving to energy, which we said is Taurus, Venusian energy, is in between the 4 on the so-called Enneagram, which represents the 4th house, ruled by Cancer and the moon. That's why INFJs, or anybody who identifies as a 4 on the so-called Enneagram, are so emotional. That's why INFJs, and many of the INFJs I know are actually 4s, 4-5s, maybe a 4-3 on the so-called Enneagram. And INFJs are known for ghosting. So you have the 3, which kind of sits in between both of these extremes of emotion and connection. Even, dare I say, unconditional love in the 2. Overextending that, becoming codependent or dependent on another energy. The 3 doesn't overextend. And in fact, I think if anything, they have the reputation of being very self-centered. However, if they've incorporated the 2 and the 4 on either side of them, they can better balance their unconditional giving of love with the love that they need to allow themselves, their inner selves, to feel safe, that there is a home there, that they are creative, they are independent, they are unique. All right, I'll stop there. I hope that gave you an idea of how or what the Enneagram actually is and its connections to the houses of your astrological chart, your natal birth chart. Also, I mentioned the Tree of Life, or the Kabbalah. That's the same thing, really, but practiced slightly different. It's certainly presented differently, this Tree of Life here. But if you notice how many, there are 10. We don't get to a 10 in the Enneagram, which is this one here, but we have number 1, which is the head, which splits into 2 and 3, 4 and 5, 6 right there in the middle, because that's the mind-body connection, the house of Virgo, 7 and 8 and 9. Yep, houses of the zodiac. That's what the Enneagram is. And if you pull out any sort of reference to the houses and descriptions of the energies of each sign, they're going to match up because they are the same. Okay, I don't know if Oscar Ichazo knew this. If he did, he was definitely potentially selling snake oil, or no, not that, because it's not. I feel like he found the Enneagram. I think his own spirit, his higher self, was very intrigued with it, and then simply probably received downloads and ideas about what this was, and developed it as far as he could, not knowing he was actually adding to the energies of the houses and the signs, this idea of subtypes or Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's actually how we relate to one another, is it not? And to the self. With self-pres, then there you have social, and then the one-on-one. What Enneagram do you identify as? I'd be interested to know. Leave your Enneagram type in the comments box. Excuse me, by the way. All right, first card out, Death card, Scorpionic energy. Scorpio is ruled by the planet Pluto and by the planet Mars. Scorpio rules the 8th house. This is sex, death, and transformation. This is fiery phoenix energy. This is what the individuation process is all about. Here it looks like Da Vinci has sketched a picture of Christ, or a Christ-like figure. 8 is a number of strength, and that is in the first card out. Oh wow, okay, all right, we'll play it that way. Second card out, Fool energy, 0. This is in your sacral or your second house. This is the energy that you're currently, if this resonates with you, that you're currently working with. This is faith. This is trusting the process, even though as an INTP, you want to know every single step, or you can sometimes easily identify the steps. Here with the Fool card, you need to throw away that TI and move that extroverted intuition from your auxiliary position up into your dominant position, or rely more on, once you have identified what other object that you're thinking on, then you need to observe it much longer than simply deciding what it is. Observe it, explore it for a better understanding and a more balanced use of your extroverted intuition. Third house, pain and pleasure, or the Devil card, card number 16. This is Capricorn energy. Capricorn rules the 10th house, and Saturn, the planet Saturn, rules Capricorn. Saturn represents time. It also represents karma. And in the Devil card, or here in this tarot deck called Pain and Pleasure, it is the sometimes vices that we hold on to give us that self-unconditional love that may not be so good for us. It is about obsession as well, or being changed to something that no longer is serving you. Also, on the more positive side, it is a card indicating, because Capricorn energy is cardinal earth energy, and Capricorn 10th house is about the public's perception of you. Your 10th house is the public's view of you, if you have any planets in there, or what sign it is. It's a mix of the sign and the house energy. It could be that you're being seen as a business person, as somebody who is initiating and starting to build things here in the 3D world. So maybe you're a Capricorn, maybe you're a Scorpio, maybe you're Aquarius. This is my Aquarius energy, or North Node energy. Find out what your North Node is on your astrological chart. And that is your true north. That is you walking on the path of destiny, where spirit wants to take you, where your higher self wants you to go. In the fourth house, we have the twins. I mentioned lovers card. So this would be in the heart space. I mentioned that the twins is Gemini energy ruled by Mercury. Mercury also rules Virgo, which is the mind-body connection. But here with the twins, the lovers, this is about marriage of that masculine and feminine within every individual. You can't have too much masculine if you're a feminine. You can't have too little feminine if you're a masculine. Think Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, great examples of the narcissist empath paradigm, right? With Depp as the empath, the masculine, gender-wise, but feminine energy within. So not expressing enough masculine to stand up, take this person to court, having endured years of abuse, or months. They weren't together that long, actually. And then poor Amber Heard, honestly, I feel for the narcissists and the empaths, because I see them as two sides of the same coin. So you have Amber Heard, female, gender expression, but totally living in her masculine, not allowing enough vulnerability to surrender and heal through truth and love and authenticity. I watched many hours of that trial. Fascinated, because I study behavior in relationships, both to the self and to others, and I can't help but think even now, had she, after the trial's conclusion, had she went out into the press and made a full 100% disclosure that yes, she was in the wrong, the ruling was fair, all of that, I'm sorry, she probably would have saved her career to a certain point. But that didn't happen. I hope it happens for everyone. Hope. Speaking of hope, in the throat chakra, ruled by Taurus, you have imagination, or card number 18 of the moon. The moon, if you don't follow your moon cycle, I know all of you ladies out there obviously have a cycle each month, but all you gents and ladies, did you know that everybody has a moon cycle, and that the moon actually travels through every single sign, and in that sign for 2.5, 3 days, every single month? I started seeing big changes in my life when I took that information and actually changed my working schedule and began to notice the positive and the negative benefits of living according to, or at least being aware of, the energies coming from the moon as it shifts into each sign. Our energetic makeup, our emotions do change. And if you were to journal and track this, you'll see that I'm right. So the moon, stay hydrated if you want to receive those downloads and ideas and fresh inspiration, because intuition in part flows on water energy within our universe. All right. Third eye. Oof. Tower energy. Deluge. Speaking of water, this is the Great Flood. This is the universe taking out the foundations that we all have. We started out with the Death card. Death card, I said, was ruled by Mars and Pluto. Mars is a planet of action and war, and Pluto is a binary system, actually, that has a lot to do with the transformational energy in each of us, in the universe, for death and rebirth. So think fiery phoenix. Tower card is Mars energy, Scorpio, and Aries energy. And it is about taking out the foundations that we've built, whether on a societal level or on the individual level, and replacing it. This is the universe. This is your reality. Your higher self sometimes, your angels, your spirit guides, your ancestors. This is God coming in and clearing out and destroying what no longer serves us to make way for the new. So that's in your third eye. That's and the third eye is connected with the solar plexus energy center here with the devil. So I see with this Plutonian Mars energy of destruction, I think there's a destruction of some old habits or things that keep you stuck as an INTP, where you're being asked to transmute your personal energies right now. Play the fool, be filled with faith and optimism, because that creates opportunity, and not knowing for once as an INTP the end result. This not knowing, I think, is the obsessive nature of the devil card, or this wanting to know as an INTP, because you judge literally everything objectively. TI is your dominant function. So it's how do I describe TI when it's easy to make a bad call with TI as your dominant function. If you're not judging that object long enough, if you're not observing that object once you've TI'd it with your dominant function, if you haven't pulled it into your other two functions, the second and third functions, and use them to observe that information, that object, then you can often be wrong or quick to judge something that may be in your best interest, but you write it off as something that you're not interested in. Take time to observe as an INTP things that come into your view, into your life, that you're intrigued by or triggered by. Take your pick. You can be triggered and intrigued at the same time. So, crown chakra. Passover, the Hanged Man. I love this for the crown because the Hanged Man is the story of Odin, who hung himself from the tree of life, or is it Yggdrasil? Or anyway, the tree that held the 9 realms. It's a story of Odin hanging himself upside down from a tree to kill off his ego. And I love it with the first card out being the Death card, because a lot of knowing about cognitive functions, a lot about knowing your astrology, your numerology, and putting all these typologies together is about the destruction of the ego, so that we can drop into our subconscious functions, so we can drop into our shadow functions and retrieve and heal that inner child and bring to light those childhood dreams and aspirations to replace the kind of established and or stuck adult energies of our ego. I love this. And then, of course, that story of Odin, taken from Norse mythology, was incorporated into the tarot. The tarot came from probably runes, came from the Irish, Celtic, Druids, and then in Italy, the Holy Roman Catholic Church, who stole all of this iconography and basically spiritual, magical powers in the bloodlines of the Irish and the Norse, the Welsh, Scottish, and basically took that magic and that knowledge for themselves, reframed it, rewrote history in the process, and called it religion or Catholicism. So yeah, it was in Milan or Venice that the first tarot deck was seen and used. It was a game that actually started with playing cards, because the minor arcana you can take and the suits correspond to the suits in tarot, and you have an ace through 10 in each of the suits. So you can use a regular deck of cards for the day-to-day energies. You won't have the major arcana, but you'll have some of the court cards with the king, queen, and jack, which would represent the knight. All right, that's what's going on. I see a lot of transpersonal individuation or egoic death and rebirth going on in the energy of the INTP, which makes sense because as your introverted thinking is your dominant function, this is all about understanding and knowing your internal structure, knowing what's going on. As long as you take enough time to observe and aren't rash or too quick to, I don't know, get an answer or decide anything. My experience with INTPs, and when I was younger, I loved to observe. I was very, very, very quiet child, loved to learn. I could observe like anything being done, and I would observe it a long time before jumping up, like say learning how to play a game in PE or anything. That TI is a superpower. Everybody's dominant function is a superpower, but knowing how that superpower is supported and how best it's supported is key, and learning to use the other functions in concert with and in support of each other is the key. That is what the death process of the ego brings to light, is oh, this is how it works. If I clear out or change my perspective on this matter, or I'm not so quick to judge something without first spending more time to better understand it, if I have a big picture view of these things in my life, it's so much easier to change, and to accept change, and to accept that change is inevitable. And that's what you really want, because you want to step into the flow of the river of life rather than being tied or anchored to the shore. Okay, Spirit, can I get some energies in the dominant function? I get 2 cards, and then we'll do 2 cards for each of the other functions and see what comes out. A lot of transformation. It takes a lot of bravery to do this kind of work. On my website, that's what I'm dedicated to. Once I went through my own individuation process, once I tapped into my creativity and learned how to better flex my cognitive functions, that's when literally my world changed. So I have an LLC, I have a business now that is dedicated to teaching you, members of the MBTI community, or any individual who is interested in doing that inner work, that inner ego work, that is really important right now with what's going on in the world. The pandemic, believe it or not, was a good thing in the way that it was giving us a heads up that right now on this planet, it is a time of change, a major revolutionary change. And the pandemic was asking us to get closer to our friends and family, and also closer to the inside of us, what's going on. So that seeming like isolation that we experienced was there to provide us the opportunity and the time to do the inward work. Looking at what's going on, looking at the nature of our relationships, both to the self and to those we call loved ones and friends. And now we're at a point, post-pandemic, or the worst of it, where if you did the work, you are better prepared to deal with the major changes that are going on the planet, within our society, and in groups and individuals, within politics, war between nations, espionage. These are all products of the Piscean age, which we're exiting. The earth and humans on it go through, what is it, a 26,000 year cycle called the precession of the equinox, where each age or each house of the zodiac, each sign, we live in for approximately 2,200 years. So the age of Pisces was marked by by Jesus of Nazareth, who was a Pisces. Pisces also is the house of Judas. This is about our open enemies or betrayers, deniers. House of Pisces, 12th house is also about darker things like addiction and prostitution, and kind of like the darker underbelly of society, because it is a collective house. It's also closely related to mysticism and dreams and the underworld. So as we exit the age of Pisces, which is mutable water, so think emotional manipulation, think illusion. That's also 12th house energy. The illusion that Judas would remain faithful. The illusion that most corporations do not have our best interest. That's 12th house energy. We're moving from the 12th house into the 11th house, which is the age of Aquarius. This is all about truth, justice, humanitarianism, philanthropy. Aquarius is known as the water bearer. Why? Because we need truth, clarity in the air of the sign of Aquarius. But we need the water, the emotions, the depth of feeling out of the age of Pisces. We need a little bit of that water to help us, and then we need a lot of air to understand that water, and or evaporate, burn away that water that no longer serves, that is dark, that is, the remaining dregs of the age of Pisces. All right, so I'm going to choose 4 cards and see what's going on in your dominant function. 4 of air, TI, what I say. 4 is a number of structure. 4 is everywhere. 4 chambers of the heart, 4 seasons. There are there's 4 everywhere. Here, it's indicating, I think, in your TI position. So this is 4 of Swords. This is Libra energy. Libra rules the 7th house of relationships, both to the self and to others. 4 of air, repose. You're doing some introspection currently. This is also a card of mental repose. It's taking a break. It's napping. It's sleeping. It's meditating on these mental energies. So that would be a message for you to take it easy, especially nowadays. In your second position, this is awesome, of extroverted intuition, you have the Queen of Fire, or Lady of Fire. Intuition, I said, is related to fire. So boom, boom, synchronicity right there in matching your dominant function stack with the cards that are coming out. I asked for, let's see what's in the dominant. Let's see what's in the auxiliary, tertiary, and inferior. This is feminine fire energy. This is a spiritual warrior here in your intuition. So maybe you are an INTP who is very interested in this kind of work of doing the self-introspective processes that allow you to tap into, if you're identify as a masculine or a male, tap into your feminine side, which is the creative side. And also, I mentioned spiritual warrior. This is a feminine energy that has gone through a lot. Very attractive as well to anyone. And with that 4 of repose, I would say that this ability to know when you need to kind of shut that TI off and rely more on your vulnerable yet passionate fire energy of your intuition. Let's see what it brings you. In your third position, a page of water. All pages are it could be somebody younger in your life, like it could be a daughter or a son. Again, take what resonates. Or it could be your inner child with a cup. And in the regular tarot, traditional tarot, it has a boy with a cup, and in that cup is a fish. So I always think of Pisces with the cup. And check it out, it's a cup. That's water. And what function that relates to is feeling, judging function. So you might be up in your feels a bit during this time of repose and this time of introspection. The message I got, and you can take this with again, take what resonates. The last card out is Two of Fire, Aries energy. Again, intuition energy. Initiating cardinal fire energy. Can be very spiritual, or it can be very dominating. Here, it's entitled Direction. And you've got the Page of Water looking over at this direction. So I think the feminine part of you, of spirit, of intuition, that is doing the work in your TI, your dominant function, is creating or helping the inner child find direction. What they want to do, where they want to go next. How do they want to spend their time? They've done the inner work, you're doing the inner work, and I think that has awakened your inner child in a way to possible direction. Oh, and again, Two of Cups or Two of Water on the bottom, union. I always look at the bottom of the deck as an overview of the energies of the cards that are out on the table. So this transpersonal individuation, this dark night of the soul, this introspection of your intuitive faculties, your cognitive abilities and functions, is reaping good rewards and is bringing you into a union, maybe with another person, or most certainly within the self. Because as I said at the top of this reading, and I'll say to the day I die, the purpose of this life, in part, and it's an important part, is to really marry that feminine and masculine within each of us. Thereby, what we can do is learn to love ourselves. This is where self-love, this is the twins energy of Gemini in the head. Third house, Gemini, mutable air energy. So it's TI or TE, but it is, the twins represent the both hemispheres of the brain. So we have at least in our body, our right side is masculine, left side feminine, and I think it's the opposite for the hemispheres of the brain. See how the nature, God, higher power, the universe, call it what you will, has placed a feminine in a masculine, with the feminine part of the brain and in the masculine side of the body, and vice versa. Because the goal is to be balanced, to incorporate both masculine and feminine energies into our person, so we can build unions with the self and with others. All right, one last card and then we'll call it quits. I didn't think this would last as long, but I'm glad I've had the chance to meet with you, and I hope you like it. Please like, share, and definitely subscribe. I'm relatively new, my channel. My website is entpgathering.com, where you can go and check out my services and get a better idea of what I do and how I can help you. All right. This fell out. It's the INFJ card. With whom you share extroverted feeling and thinking as judging functions. The INFJ's superego functions are that of the ISTJ. And the ISTJ has what as their dominant function? TI. There's the connection to you, INTP. And the fact that your judging functions are the same, as they are the same with the ENTP. And the second card out was FE, which is your inferior function. Let's talk about that. So FE is my codependent energy. I know it well because it's in my tertiary position. And what I discovered in my research about the cognitive functions and once I had a good understanding of how they might work, I began to look for the subjective experience of those functions in my life. And what I found was that I would often pair or prefer to use my dominant function with FE rather than TI. Thereby, I was overextending myself. I'm a triple Taurus or a quad Taurus. So, I'm like Enneagram 2, where just give, wanting something in return, but never receiving anything in return. Because when you are codependent or dependent on anyone outside of yourself, because you haven't married that masculine and feminine within you, you haven't healed that inner child, one becomes codependent on everyone around them. So in order to get more introversion in my life and switch the FE with the TI and put my TI in the position right underneath my dominant function of extroverted intuition, I needed to go into my SI, my inferior function. So what that did for me was it slowed a lot of the energy of the dominant function down within me. I was able to revisit past relationships and experiences and emotions that led me to where I am now. And it was through that sensing with SI, as my inferior function, that I was able to better understand the road I was on and how I ended up where I ended up. Connected to the people I was connected to. And as soon as I made that realization that I was overextending myself, I realized I had no boundaries because I wasn't born with boundaries. As an ENTP with extroverted intuition, it's kind of known for, right? Being gregarious and obnoxious and pushy and loud, expressive. Sirens going off. Maybe that's a synchronicity, but heck. In the world today, there's sirens going off left and right? So I realized that I had to get a hold of my cognitive functions in such a way that I could better balance my dominant function with whatever function I choose. Now, mind you, the dominant function and the inferior function work on an axis, and it's the auxiliary and tertiary functions that we have better grasp of or control of, so that we can consciously, because the rational functions, the judging functions, we can consciously use them according to the state or situation that we're in. So with you, with FE, with being a TI dominant, it's a lonely place, but you're an introvert, so you don't mind being alone. Yet at the same time, you do yearn for understanding the collective. Even though you may not admit it, it is your inferior function. And my recommendation, because this card came out, and especially with the Two of Cups and all this death, rebirth energy in the cards, I would say tap into groups, tribes, energies within your life. And you're so good at being an introvert, maybe spend more time around them. You don't have to talk, but just observe. This will give you the confidence to speak up, and share and or get information from that collective mindset that often you are reluctant, or you outright negate, because it has no interest in you, it has no use to you, it's not utilitarian in any way. And let's face it, FE can be very, well, popular, right? Almost superficial, because it is very much hive mind energy. So I would counsel you, if you were to arrange a one-on-one session with me from my website, we can talk about your present situation, how it relates to your cognitive functions. You can also go to my store on my website and actually purchase packages where you will purchase the step 1 and step 2 of the MBTI. I'll send you a link, you'll do that. Then we will book a one-on-one where we'll go over the results of step 1 and step 2. And step 1 is a multi-page report, as is step 2. Step 1 identifies your reported type, and also I will work with you in establishing your best fit type if there is any sort of difference between the reported type and what type you feel that you are, because you may be presenting as a different type than your reported type, as do I. Second thing that you'll get in the MBTI packages in my shop on my website is in connection and combination with step 1 and step 2 results, and the time with me to go over those results, and time for you to ask any questions, and for me to clarify anything in the reports. I'm also going to we'll combine that with your own astrology, and I'll show you how your sun sign, for example, is going to be a reflection of your cognitive function stack, or your MBTI, or maybe it's just your dominant function, but there is a correlation there, there's a connection there. And once you know that, it's so much easier to see in your blind spots of life. And the third thing that I do is I calculate not only your natal astrological chart and give you an introduction to the planets, the houses, and the degrees in your chart, but also I'll calculate your sacred numerology, which is based on values given to the letters in the English alphabet by Pythagoras. And it's through that you can, I guarantee you, you'll find your basic Enneagram type. And most certainly, you'll find your life path number, your expression number, your challenge number, your soul urge number, the energies surrounding your first, middle, and last name. These all play into your Enneagram, your cognitive functions, and your astrology in an amazing way. And I am super excited to share the discoveries that I made about these connections between these seemingly disparate typology systems. Once I saw that they are connected, that they are real, there is a creator energy, there is a creator, and it's found within the self. It's found within the process of individuation, that we can actually expand our consciousness to a point where we get to touch God or the universe, whatever you believe in. And if you don't believe in a higher power, I can guarantee you that there are no coincidences, and I can guarantee you that by exploring your own cognitive functions and getting a detailed multi-page report on how you prefer to use those functions, and how in your step 2 report, how often you are in your preferred function, how often you step out of it, and how often you are right in the middle. This is what I call the good stuff in the reports, is the facets. There are 20, 5 for each of the, you got 5 for introversion, extroversion. You've got 5 areas where your preferences are scaled or placed on a spectrum from in preference to out of preference and in between. Knowing how often you are in or out of preference or in between shows you how flexible you are with that particular function or that part of your MBTI. Invaluable information. It's priceless because it gives you an objective view on how you are currently working. And I firmly believe our MBTI, we're not stuck with it. On my website and in my practice, I will teach you how to become more cognitive flexible. This is the goal, so that you are not an INTP, you become an NT. Able to utilize the function stacks and functions of other MBTIs, ENTJ, ENTP, and INTJ. So I'm going to call it quits. It's almost an hour and a half. I didn't expect this to go as long, but I'm glad I spent the time with you, INTP. And please like, follow, subscribe. I will have more readings for all of the intuitive dominants, and eventually we'll get around to sensors as well. And don't forget to check out my website as well, and find out what's in the shop and what you can book. If you just wanted to meet up and talk, maybe you're coming from an organized religion, but you are developing your own spiritual path and stepping away, I can help with that. Or if you were like me, somebody who wasn't so spiritual, didn't believe in a higher power, but through my own experience of learning and through my own individuation process, I've learned how to kill off those parts of the ego where fear, confusion, procrastination reside. I've been able to slowly, and it is a slow process. You'll want to take time with this process because, and take great care with it because it is so important. And it's so underutilized, this process, because it's so misunderstood. But I truly believe I can counsel anyone through this process, especially when it is induced already in society. Right now, many of us are going through this death rebirth process because we're moving from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius, because the world is changing, because societal structures, government structures, the monetary system, how we buy and trade, and how commerce is conducted in this country and others globally is changing. It has to change. So, allow me to help you in any way that I can. If you'd like to donate to this channel, all of these videos are free. You can re-watch them. Please share them, like them, and subscribe for more readings for the MBTI dominance. Thank you.